All right. So today's focus outside today is about if you focus on your goals, you will achieve those goals, right? I'm reading a book right here, Master of Change, Brad Stulberg. This book is actually really good. And I just went over Zenshin. And Zenshin is, so there. Before I get into Zenshin, there's something called, let's see if we can find it, target fixation. And target fixation is a phenomenon known as where you're literally just focused, like way too focused. And it ends up, you don't see everything else that could happen, right? So a good example would be somebody, if you're focusing on driving for a long period of time, and you're just focusing on the car in front of you, and then next thing you know, you ram into the back of that car. So that's target fixation. So Zenshin, what Zenshin done is actually taught in Aikido, which is a martial art, and it is essentially to be more aware of everything around you, not just focusing on like what you're focusing on. Is be more broad. And I think individuals who are very successful are very good at that. And in the long term, if you're able to practice that, that is a really sustainable practice. That's something I do all the time. Now there was another thing. There is a golfer, which I thought was interesting that this guy brought up, and her name is Inbee Park. Inbee Park is phenomenal at golf. She's one of the world's best golfers, and one of the youngest to be as accomplished as she is in golf. And something that she said, something she quoted from this book, she said, "I came to realize that expectations really don't matter and people don't care about you that much, and as much as you think. You don't really need to worry about other people. Worry about yourself and that what you're doing is right." That's big. That is big. Worry about what you're doing is right. I think a lot of people have the lack of confidence that what they're doing is right. And I think when you can find your why and stick to it and reflect on your core values, you can all of a sudden really become unstoppable, because if what you're doing you believe is right and you stick with it, everything else will unfold. You just have to have complete belief in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, who will? Nobody will actually believe in you more than you, if that makes sense. You might have fans, you might have people that, love your content and stuff like that, but you're the one making the content. You're the one that brought those fans because you believed in yourself, right? So that's where it really comes down to. I just thought I'd share that. I think it was a really cool part of that book, and the way he kind of created or put that into how we what is the word? How we adapt to change, right? That's the whole aspect of this book, is how do we adapt to change? And Zenshin, fuck, I forget, is how we adapt to change, right? One of the ways that we adapt to change. And he goes through so many different ways. I mean, for instance, a good example is when I broke and dislocated both of my feet, I had to adapt to the way I was going to live from there on out. And I had to figure out a way to adapt. And he goes into this, Brad goes into this on how, if you don't adapt, you will be stuck in a loop of being miserable. Because if you can be creative and adapt to whatever you're going through, you can all of a sudden become unstoppable. Because you're able to adapt to whatever's changing. The best companies, he explains, the best companies have been able to adapt. A good example is the New York Times. When technology was on the rise and newspaper was just not a big thing anymore, it really is almost non-existent now. You don't really see it anywhere. The New York Times started creating podcasts. They started to adapt to reach the audience as where they were going. And that, in my opinion, is so freaking cool. And I think that there's so much power in that. If you can adapt to change and you can successfully do that and not allow it to, and not be disruptive or destructive to yourself, in the process. You don't get addicted. You don't, allow yourself to, you don't try to push. You don't work against the change. You work with the change, right? That's what it is. You don't work against the change. You work with the change. So, if you're going through something hard right now, first, are you going against the change right now, or are you going with the change? And if you're going against it, how can you figure out how to go with it? How can you adapt? Be creative. Start brainstorming. Figure out how you're going to live this new life and how you're going to do it to the best of your ability. And if you don't know your core values, get to know your core values. That's going to keep you. That is going to keep you, you. That is going to give you a unique standpoint that is going to make you who you are. So, with that being said, I love you all. As always, never stop improving. This was a short video, but go out there and kill it. Peace.